Hello there, I'm Steve from Mac84, and today we're looking at this very sad Power Macintosh G4 MDD, or Mirror Drive Door. This machine was given to me by RetroFox. They found it at a flea market, so I bought it off of them. And yeah, I think it's quite easy to see that it's had a rough life. So today we're just going to be inspecting this, seeing what the heck is going on here, and see if it works, because I'm very curious to see if this thing survived. And if you're interested about old Apple tech and interesting machines, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. So the reason I picked this thing up was not because it was sad and beat up or because it was affordably priced, but because of, well, this. Look at all of those cards that are installed in those expansion slots. We have 2 USB cards, 2 video cards, and I believe an audio I/O card for like professional audiophile people. And yeah, that's why I was like, okay, for the price I paid for this, which I think was about $30 or $35, like that was well worth it alone. I mean, even if the machine is dead, those video cards and stuff like that are quite useful, because usually when I pick up one of these machines, it doesn't really have much in it. Maybe there's a video card, maybe a SCSI card, but this was obviously a loved machine. Somebody put a lot of upgrades into this, and I'm curious to see if it still works. And even if those cards weren't too desirable, the other reason I picked this up is because it's a dual 1.25 gigahertz Power Mac G4. So this thing is pretty fast. The most obvious damage is here. I don't know what to say. There's a chunk missing. So no amount of duct tape or bandages is going to fix that. And the door doesn't quite close on its own that easily. And this plastic part is supposed to be fairly flat, but it's not. So something must have really damaged this thing to the extent where, I don't know if it fell or whatever, but that plastic and the metal got bent and it's just not happy. We're going to worry about cosmetics a bit later, because what's the point of fixing it up cosmetically if, well, it's dead? So let's get a monitor and a keyboard and see if this thing fires up. I guess before we turn it on, we should have a look inside. And yeah, it looks pretty standard. You can't see from that angle, but we have our I/O cards here. We have a Saft PRAM battery, which is probably long dead. There's an amount of dust in here. I'm not seeing anything major that would caution me to turning this on. No frayed cables. Looks like we have actually 2 hard drives in here. Okay. And we have, let's see, 1 optical drive and a blank plate for the other optical drive. So we have 2 hard drives and 1 optical drive. All right, so we have our monitor and our system set up. It's always a bit awkward with this view, so I apologize. I'm not going to be able to see the screen. I have a little iPad here, but it's not a direct line from the screen, so I might have to move over to that side of the desk in a bit. But I just want to see if this thing powers on. We do have 2 hard drives in here. One is an IBM Death Star. That's a Desk Star model, and that is 82 gigs, so I'm not sure if that's going to work. But the battery hasn't leaked, and everything looks like it's plugged in. So I'm going to try and turn this thing on and just see if it turns on, because a lot of these particular models have power supply issues. So let's just feel our way to the power button. And, oh, all right, we got a fan. Oh, that's a loud chime. Wow, that fan's noisy. Oh, the fan might be hitting my microphone, so apologies if there's going to be weird audio editing or whatever, but I'll try and facilitate that in a bit. We're not getting any picture on the screen. Not yet. There are 2 video cards in here. So one has VGA and DVI. The other has ADC and DVI. So I might have to pull a adapter off the shelf here to plug in a DVI display, or just wait for the VGA display to work. There we go. So it's booting up. I'm going to take a guess that this has Tiger on it, because that was a very popular version of the Mac OS at the time. You could put Leopard on these things, but Tiger is so snappy. It just runs beautifully. I don't know if it's going to have a password or not, but I'm surprised this thing works. I'm very excited. The MDD is a fantastic Power Macintosh computer. What's cool about the MDD is it can boot into Mac OS 9 and Mac OS 10. Now, the later MDD models had a FireWire 800 port on it, and specifically those models from the factory did not support Mac OS 9, but this Mac OS 9 Lives project actually makes it so you can boot into Mac OS 9 on those models and some other unsupported models. So check out that website if you want to find out more information about that. Well, it's still booting. Not sure what's going on here, but it is an old and cranky machine. All right, well, it booted up, but it is not happy. Do you hear that fan? I'm gonna put my microphone closer to the fan. I mean, at least it booted. Probably also is not happy because the door is off, but let's go to About This Mac. And it's running Tiger. There we go, 10.4.11. Dual 1.25 gigahertz with 1.25 gigabytes of DDR memory. That's a lot of memory. And we do have 2 hard drives on here with a bunch of personal crap on there. Not exactly gonna go poking around on that, but it works. Even if it's very, very loud. Okay, so they're both 80 gigabyte hard drives. They both have about 18 to 22 gigabytes of data on them. And they were created in 2004, at least the volume was. And let's see if we could find any dates of last modified files, because that gives you a good clue as to the last time somebody used it. And it looks like 2009, 2010. So that is not surprising at all. These machines were very, very powerful, but oh, I think we went to the opposite display there. I don't know if I can get that back. I am curious about the I/O cards in here. If you could hear me shouting over this damn fan, I'm sorry. So let's see, we have an ATI Radeon 9000 Pro. That is awesome. And then we have a second card that is just labeled as ATI VGA. And that has 32 megabytes of memory, so maybe that's a Radeon 7000 or something like that. So the ATI Radeon 9000 Pro is in the AGP slot, and this ATI Radeon is in the PCI slot. So let's go to the PCI bus. So we have 2 USB cards, and those are probably USB 2. And we have an audio I/O card. I've seen one of those before. This is an M audio card, and that's meant for multiple audio I/O to connect to music devices and instruments and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. Looking at the drives here, we have a Toshiba DVD-ROM drive, and we also have 2 hard drives. One is the 80 gigabyte IBM, and the other appears to be, well, doesn't really tell us, but anyway. Let's check out if this is just a DVD-ROM or not. No, it's actually a combo drive, so it could read DVDs. That's why it says DVD-ROM, but it says it could write CDRs. So that's interesting. Usually people got the super drive, but they were so expensive back in the day that if you weren't going to be burning DVDs and maybe you just wanted to burn CDs, that was fine enough for you, you would probably get the DVD combo drive, which would allow you to read DVD-ROM discs. You couldn't burn them, but you could read them, and then you could burn CDRs or CDRWs. It's so much quieter with that fan off. Let's see if we can try and clean this up a bit. Maybe it's just very dusty. I mean, it's an old fan. I could replace it with one of those fancy Noctuas or something. It'll be much quieter, but I don't have one on hand. So let's just try and clean this machine up a little bit and see if we could fix some of whatever's going on here. So it looks like to get to the fan, we're going to have to remove the hard drives. And wow, that heatsink is still hot. Not surprising at all. Okay, there's a little plastic latch that you pull, and it just loosens the entire cage holding the hard drives from the back of the case. All right, so let's unplug them here. That one does not want to come undone. These Molex connectors can be so stubborn sometimes, and those plastic edges can be so sharp, just cut up your fingers. Sometimes you just have to shift it left and right, just millimeter by millimeter, just slightly loosening it before you can get any leverage on it to pull the darn thing out. Oh, finally. Okay, so there is no shortage of dust inside of this computer, but this fan is what I primarily want to try and tackle right now. All right, so let's remove that IDE cable here. That's for the hard drives. And I think this is supposed to just come out. I mean, I could look at the manual. I think what you have to do is remove the optical drives first, and yeah. So let's remove the optical drive here and the cage that is holding it on, so you could put in something else like a zip drive. That's the only thing. There was a bezel for a zip drive. It's more common with the Quicksilver to see the zip drive, but the bezel for the zip drive on the MDD is something that's a bit sought after. You don't really see them too often. And another Molex connector. Oh gosh. There we go. I haven't taken one of these apart in ages. Alright, so there's a bit of dust in there, but nothing terrible. We have the IDE cable routed on the top here, so you want to be very careful because there's sharp metal in here. You don't want to destroy anything, but the fan just comes right off, and I believe that wire... Thank you, Apple, for not doing anything fancy and annoying to make it a pain in the butt to swap this out. Oh, I spoke too soon. All of the cables are like neatly arranged, so the bulky end of this connector can't come through. There we go. Oh, yeah, there's just this grime to it. So we're gonna have to dust this out. It's sure it still works. Or I mean, it works, but boy, is it noisy. Let's try and clean that up. So you can see, I mean, it's a little dark, but you can see there is a lot of dust and grime in here. So I'm gonna try and clean that out as best I can. I don't know how well I can get it to look, but it looks like to be that dust that's more sticky and bleh. So let's just get a paper towel in here, a wet paper towel, and try and look at that already. Try and get some of this grime out of here. It's all by the motherboard too. There's a lot of dust. So yeah, this thing was probably running for a long time, and we saw it was in use, at least to some extent, in 2009 or 2010. And so this machine came out in 2003, so it at least had a very, very long life, and probably a hard life at that. A lot of people always ask, why do people in the graphics or the audio fields hang on to their machines for so long? And it's usually because the stuff that they connect to, the I/O cards or the synthesizers or the capture boxes and stuff like that, may not have the appropriate hardware or software connections to use or utilize all the power of a new computer. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you can upgrade, but you might have to buy tons and tons of new cables or adapters or even new systems to capture or mess with audio and video, and that stuff can be super expensive. So if you dropped like 5-10 grand on all that stuff previously, and a Power Mac G4 or a G5 works fine for you, then it's probably cheaper to get some of those spare systems in their older age and keep going, as long as your needs don't change, than shelling out for a new system and a new set of adapters and cables and all that crap too. Not to mention the software, but oh goodness, yeah, that's pretty rough. Yeah, this piece of metal itself still has a lot of dust and crap like between the fins. I don't know if I could take this off or not. Those might be rivets. Yeah, it looks like it's riveted onto the bottom. So I don't know if I could easily take that out, but I might be able to just take that blower and blow some of it out, because there are two bays here. And this is so you could actually add 2 more hard drives. So you could actually have 4 hard drives in this system. That's why there's a spare ATA66 connector that you can barely see right there if I move the system up. So we have this ATA33 cable for the optical drive and maybe a zip drive. And then we have over here another ATA connector for the hard drives that were here, and then another one here. So on previous systems there wasn't that many connectivity options, but here you have 3 ATA ports on the system, which is really nice. All right, let's take this bad boy outside. All right, let's dust this thing. All right, we're back from outside, and it's looking much better in here. It's not perfect, and there are still some pieces of grime on the fan, but we'll tackle that next. Let's see if we can just clean this up a little bit. I'll have to order a new fan eventually because there's no way to run this thing without that noise really getting to you. And I know these systems were pretty loud from the factory, but still, we could do better. Yeah, that has a lot of crap on it too. I should have done that outside. I mean, look at all that. Yeah, that's not good. Oh, we'll just do our best to get the big chunks of dust out. We're going to be replacing the fan in the future after all, but still. So I just have some 99% isopropyl alcohol on here, and so I'm just trying to clean these blades the best I can. Oof, that's just one side of them. My gosh, I don't want to know where this thing was, because that's disgusting. So did you ever have a Power Macintosh G4, whether it's the graphite ones, which sort of look like a dark green or a dark blue, or whether it was the Quicksilver ones, the G4 Cube, or the MDD like this, or even a PowerBook, or an iBook, or even an iMac G4. I mean, they made a lot of G4 systems, especially compared to the G5, where it was just the Power Mac G5 desktop and the G5 iMac. But let me know in the comment section. These machines were terribly popular in a good way, and just curious how many of you folks had one, because I always thought they were amazing. I found this fan in my parts drawer, and the connector doesn't match, and it's not as thick as this one, so I'm not going to put that one in. But this did clean up pretty good, I suppose. All this dirt and crap is going to stain the desk, but at least it's not in the fan anymore. It's not perfect, and I'm sure it's going to be noisy still, but at least it's as clean as we could get it, reasonably, and we'll see if that's a lot quieter. Here's hoping. The next thing I want to do is tackle this panel. It's a bit bent. It looks like that is bent, and I don't know if we can get that seated properly, but we could try. All right, so to settle this panel, I think we have to take the handles off according to the service manual. So let's do that. Oh boy, that just sprung up there, huh? So this is the front handle. I'm going to put that down here. And let's work on the back one here. Oh yeah, this one was really messed up. Wow. You could just see the metal just all stripped away there. Let's get a better look at that in a moment, but yeah, this is this was just loose. So we'll see if we can fix that. One of the teeth is missing, unfortunately, from the top of this, but we'll see if we can get a little bit better on there. I mean, just look at how messed up that metal is. That handle must have taken the brunt of an awful fall. Ouch. I don't think we're going to be able to do much with this, unfortunately. Where's that rubber mallet I had? Yeah, I mean, this bent piece of metal is probably also preventing that door from closing. So I'm not going to mess too much with that because it's probably just going to cut up my hand and not really help us out with anything. But at the very least, we could see what was causing that door not to close. And I'm surprised the handle was sticking on there at all. So there is a tooth missing here. So the panel is secured by these little hooks or teeth or whatever. And so we should hopefully be able to just slide them back in. Oh, this one is like cracked. Well, it's better than it was. I mean, this is all bent too. But I mean, all things considered, I don't think that's terrible. Well, actually, this wasn't a nut. This is just like the piece of the metal that is no longer there. So I mean, it was welded or somehow to this piece of metal, and that's just literally not there anymore. I don't even know if I can't even slide it back. So I think the closest thing I could do is just try and wedge this back in there. Good thing I'm filming this, huh? You're doing it wrong. You're butchering the machine. Oh, the humanity. Now, I do have one of these machines that is in pretty much perfect condition. So I'm not too worried if I can't get this looking the best. But I just want to try and put this handle back on. And we might just have to bend some of the metal to allow us to do that. But, I mean, it was already bent when I got it, so... Oh boy, what a mess. Well, the handle's there, but it's not exactly where it should exactly be. But let's see if this closes better. Nope. Made that worse. Well, it closes better than it did before, kind of. I mean, this is where the impact was, right here. So the poor handle took a heck of a beating. Let's put the other handle back on. See, by putting that handle on, it's pushing this up, which is weird. Let's see if we can fix this. I mean, this whole thing is probably all bent and screwed up. Yeah, the problem is this handle goes where the seam of this top and bottom piece here. And I know you can't really see it that well, but it's like pushing at all the spots where this sled is weak. So... well, not the sled, but, you know, the top of the case here. So it's not exactly fun to try and put back on. And I don't think it's quite exactly happy with the position here. I'm really having to push this handle in just to get the darn screw in. Well, that took some convincing. I mean, this is all sort of messed up. But at least this is flat now. So that looks a bit better. And this actually closes a little bit easier. So that's good. All right, let's put everything back together. So remember that hard drive that was kind of wobbling around in there? Well, it wasn't even screwed in. And Apple actually provides you with screws to plug them into this little module here, and they're right here. So it's nice to see that they did that. They also did that on the G5 tower. So I'm going to actually use those screws and secure this hard drive in there, even if we're not going to leave it in there forever. At least it won't be wobbling around as much. And we can actually see the other drive in there is a Seagate drive, and that's an Apple drive that's shipped with the machine from the factory, so that's pretty neat. All right, so now to put the hard drives back, there are these little standoffs here, and we're going to put that into the matching holes on the back of the case, so it just sort of hangs there with the IDE and the power ports facing down. But we do have to plug in the cables, so that'll make it much easier for us to plug in the drives and everything while it's not mounted there. So let's do that. And I forgot to put the fan in because I'm an idiot. Okay, so everything is back as it should be, I think. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to fix this. That's just too far gone. I mean, that's where this thing must have taken the bulk of the impact there. And it looks ugly, but you know what? It's a battle scar. So let's plug this thing in and make sure it still works. And the volume is still set to deafening loud. Now that fan's a little quieter, but you can still really hear it. But, you know, that's the only fan inside of the machine, I'm pretty sure, except for the one that's in the power supply. So that one could also be quite noisy. There we go. And it's booting up. Let's hope it takes a lot shorter than it did last time. Let's make sure this optical drive works. I'm actually going to restart this machine into Mac OS 9. It has a Mac OS 9 system folder on there, so I'm curious if it'll boot to that and if we have any games or anything that we could try and run on this thing to see if it recognizes both video cards, because Mac OS X kind of does, but I don't know if Mac OS 9 will be too happy with that. Well, that's not promising. It seems to be a little confused over where the Mac OS 9 partition is, which is weird because it probably came with that, unless something got corrupt or something like that. I guess we won't be playing Unreal Tournament today. But a good thing about these systems is if you want to boot into Mac OS X, you can either hold down the Option key and select the disk if it's on a different partition, but if it's not, if both OSs are on the same, you just hold down the X key when you start up, and you should be able to just boot right into Mac OS X. There we go. Oh, this person put their dock on the side of the screen. It's always confusing to me. Well, at least we know the optical drive works. We could play our game of Unreal Tournament another time. I'll probably put a SSD solution into this system. That might be fun to do. And have it up and running again. But this is a dual 1.25 gigahertz G4, so we could definitely do a lot with this system. Let me know what you want to see done to this system. What operating system would you run on this machine? I mean, yeah, there's Mac OS 9, Mac OS 10, but you'll probably run some flavor of Linux on there, but I'm not Shaun of Action Retro, so I'm not going into that territory. This machine is cursed enough as it is. Well, there you have it. This thing works great. Unfortunately, we have those cosmetic difficulties here, but it does power on well, and it's a dual 1.25 gigahertz model, so that's pretty powerful. Unfortunately, the power supplies in these systems like to crap out, so I don't know how much longer this machine has, but I do want to put an SSD in there and do a fresh install of the operating systems OS 9 and 10 so I could dual boot on this thing. And let me know what other upgrades you want to see done to this machine. All the card slots are full, but I could always swap things out if I really wanted to. That just leaves this cosmetic imperfection. I'm not going to replace the side panel because I have a G4 MDD that is in beautiful shape, so I don't need a perfect looking one. And maybe we could just cover it up somehow with a band-aid or something like that. There, now that looks much better. So I hope you enjoyed this video about this lovely Power Macintosh G4. It's a bit special, but I quite like it. If you like these sorts of videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. You could also follow me on social media and support me via Patreon. But that's about it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you right here next time on Mac 84.